The last couple of days started with a lot of
Hoopla!
started with
Hoopla!
started with a lot of
Hoopla! Hoopla!
a lot of hoopla from the Utah Jazz, who have been the busiest, noisiest team this offseason. Now we have a spurned Knicks fan base, an even more exciting Cavaliers squad, a full-blown rebuild with 30 first-round picks in the next 7 seasons between two teams in the Thunder and the Jazz. That's literally an entire first-round draft. Now selecting the Utah Jazz. Next, the Thunder. Now selecting the Thunder. Next, the Utah Jazz for 30 straight picks. We have my team, the Portland Trail Blazers, just trying to remain relevant and slowly breaking my heart. Two legit young powerhouses in the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. And as per new trend, we start with the team I think will lead the division and work our way down. The Denver Nuggets have been staying afloat by the absolute brilliance of Nikola Jokic the last 2 years. In the bubble, they looked equal parts Jamal Murray and Jokic. Then Murray blew out his knee, and it became Michael Porter Jr. Jokic show. MPJ became a 20-point-per-game scorer on lights-out efficiency, living up to why he was such a phenomenal draft prospect, but he also lived up to why he fell down to 14th. Those scary back issues propped up, and he missed all but 9 games last season after signing a massive 5-year rookie max extension. I was against the deal due to those same back concerns, but he earned it regardless with 1 year of play, only for those very same concerns to pop up just months later. Jokic led this Nuggets team to 48 and 34 with Aaron Gordon and Will Barton as his second and third best players. They were never meant to be a contender during this stretch without their true second and third best players. But this stretch uncorked Jokic's ceiling, which is apparently an analytics destroyer. Every advanced stat there is, Jokic is just 360 quickscoping a new record. And the Nuggets are better because of it. This offseason, they traded away Barton and Monte Morris, two phenomenal rotation pieces, for Contavious Caldwell-Pope, and brought on board Brooklyn's Bruce Brown. So while those two players are technically on paper downgrades, they are better fits than Barton and Morris, since Barton and Morris are more ball dominant. With the returns of Murray and MPJ, most touches should disintegrate, and off-ball movement, consistency, and defense will be a huge priority. KCP and Brown fill that role perfectly. The Nuggets don't exactly have an injury insurance anymore, but so long as Jokic is mostly healthy, this team should be able to stay afloat since he's become one of the best offensive engines in all of basketball. I haven't seen a player dominate and upgrade his team this well since early stages LeBron James. The Nuggets will be one of, if not the best team out west if their triumvirate of stars are healthy. With Aaron Gordon as your fourth best player, some decent depth bench play, and good coaching with Michael Malone at the helm. Never call him Mike Malone, it's Michael Malone.
Nuggets Mike Malone and coach
Michael Malone.
Michael Malone, my apologies, coach.
The Nuggets are primed for a great run this season. I see them with a ceiling of about 60 and 22. If Murray and MPJ can solve their injury problems, maybe 44 and 38. But I have these Nuggets going 55 and 27. Minnesota started something amazing last year. They overcame an incredibly slow start to become the 7th seed in an incredibly competitive Western Conference. We all already knew that Karl Anthony Towns was talented, but he seemed to lack motivation every year prior. He never really showed he can play to his potential for an entire season. Until last year, where he dropped 24.6 points, 9.8 boards on splits of 53% field, 41-3, and 82 free. That's just an incredible year. Anthony Edwards emerged as one of the best young players in the NBA, and his potential is yet to be tapped. He can still be a better playmaker, a better scorer, and a significantly better rebounder given his God-given athleticism. The Wolves made a very curious trade with Rudy Gobert this offseason, totally shattering the trade market, removing their depth and future flexibility. Moving away from Jared Vanderbilt to me was a mistake. I love the energy he brought for them on the glass, especially the offensive glass. Despite playing minimal minutes, he led the team in offensive rebounding. He was seemingly always in the right place at the right time, and his hands were solid as a roll man. Getting Gobert, they do add one of the best interior defenders in NBA history, but in today's stretch league, his impact has been limited when not surrounded by solid perimeter defenders. They moved on from Patrick Beverley, who, despite how you may feel about him, is a good perimeter defender while also doubling as a fantastic locker room presence. Even so, this Wolves team has a great ceiling with their young core. Edwards is going to improve. There are no signs against him becoming a better basketball player. They almost beat the Grizzlies and became the embodiment of immaturity. You know those sayings of how young teams struggle in the playoffs, they struggle down the stretch? Well, the Wolves showed that to be exactly true. They made bad decisions late. They lost leads by playing cocky, but the Wolves still have a ceiling of about 55-27, a floor of 49-33, but I think this is a 52-win Wolves team. I'm just not so sure about their playoff ceiling. With Gobert and no real proven perimeter defender, they may fall into the same trap Utah did the last 2 seasons. If you like this content, please hit the subscribe button to join the Ant Colony. We are already at 131, with 150 being that next milestone, and like the video as well to push us up that YouTube algorithm. Portland, my favorite team. I love Damian Lillard, but this franchise has failed him miserably when it comes to bringing on a winning roster. Ever since their 2019 conference finals run, Neil Olshey did not make any real powerful moves to improve, since that team seemed like it was a competitive championship team. He has since been fired, but new GM Joe Cronin moved on from CJ McCollum and some pretty good rotation pieces in Robert Covington and Norman Powell mid-season. The entire roster was deactivated for health and the development of their young players. But it's hard to say this team isn't a deep play-in team at best. Damian Lillard is back from an abdominal injury. Yusuf Nurkic should be healthy, and while he's impactful during his court time, staying on the court has always been a problem. Anthony Simons became a lovely player last season, so the Blazers went out and overpaid him, creating the same problem they had with Lillard and CJ, an undersized, poor defensive backcourt duo. They will, however, be able to light up some opposing scoreboards. The biggest addition was sneaking Jeremy Grant from Detroit. I like the pickup, he's a pretty solid perimeter defender, but having a lumbering big man that isn't exactly known for his interior lockup like Nurkic is still a problem. The front office built this team to be a glass cannon. It's worked before. They flirted with 50-win seasons before the bubble year before injuries started to mount. I just don't think they've kept up with the arms race the rest of the league has had the last 2 seasons. Lillard may not look like the top 10 MVP finisher he was from 2015 to 2021. He played with an abdominal injury for almost a year and a half, including the Olympics, had off-season surgery, and that could hamper his ceiling. The absolute best case scenario for this Blazers is a 48-win season. Lillard looks like an MVP candidate again, Nurkic stays healthy, and Simons and Grant fit their roles perfectly throughout. But realistically, this is a 500 team. I think they go 41-41 and fight tooth and nail for the 10th seed play-in spot. Next up, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. This team is mid-rebuild, and then Chet Holmgren suffered some torn ligaments in his foot playing a pickup game in the summer. He's now been shut down for the entire season, joining the likes of Blake Griffin, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Greg Oden, and Nerlens Noel. Now there's a trend on that list. Most of these guys have suffered consistent injury issues, and only time will tell if Chet is fit to join them. Foot injuries on big men also tend to be a long-term problem, not to mention his obvious weight issues or underweight issues, but keeping him out to develop an NBA body and good health seems like the right move. The Thunder have built a solid roster through the draft and prospect trades. Josh Giddey showed to be a special player last year, a good playmaker, a good rebounder, a decent scorer, who's still learning the core of what it means to play basketball. He's only 19 years old. I really like Lou Dort as a solid rotation piece, and Alexei Palkashevsky showed some serious flashes last year. I expect Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to be on the trade market this year. Despite only being 24 years old, his contract and age does not fit their new timeline. But like any young team, consistency will be a problem. They had 24 wins last year. I think they can replicate that. A ceiling of about 26, a floor of about high teens, 18, 19, but I have them going 24-58. What is going on in Utah? Now, I know last week I said the Pacers are the worst team in the league. Well, that was before Utah Jazz sent Donovan Mitchell, out of nowhere by the way, to the Cleveland Cavaliers, completely decimating Utah's hope of a season. I was big on the Cavs before, but whoo man, they look amazing now, and when this series is over, I'm going to talk about their new potential in 2022-23. This obviously brought up some serious salt for Knicks and their fans, especially since there was a rumored trade for RJ Obi and Mitchell Robinson, and 3 unprotected first-round picks for Mitch, and the haul Cleveland sent was a pretty big step behind that amount. But for Utah, they fully embraced their rebuild, and they got some serious draft capital for it. Between the Gobert and Mitchell trades, they got 7 unprotected first-round picks, Walker Kessler and Ochai Agbaji, 2 picks from this past draft, and 5 swaps that may not become anything, but they're still swaps. So we can expect the Jazz of last year to be completely disbanded. Expect Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Jordan Clarkson to be swapped out before the trade deadline for more draft picks or recently drafted players. Danny Ainge is rivaling the Oklahoma City Thunder for insane draft capital. The Jazz right now are firmly entrenched in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes for next season, and honestly, it'll be pretty hilarious if they didn't get it. Regardless, this team will be horrible by design next year. They have a new head coach in Will Hardy, who's only 34 years old. That's the same age as their starting point guard Mike Conley. Who's to say he's not good though? He's just unproven. Results aren't expected this year at all. The only result that they want is a phenomenal draft pick placement. The ceiling for this Jazz squad as constructed is a 20-win team. They won't be this team though throughout the year as they start making trades. Before the deadline, expect those 3 players, Bojan, Conley, and Clarkson, to be repping another city. This is a 14-win team at best after those moves. Right where I expect them to be. The Northwest Division is semi-competitive. I think the Wolves are ready to make some serious noise, and the Jazz have now dropped out of the playoff race completely. I hope my Blazers can do something and lock off a playoff spot this season to give Lillard a bit of a chance, but that's wishful thinking when they're the 3rd best team in their own division. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it every time, and I'll see you next week.